So welcome, Speddoc fam. Welcome back to the channel. Hope you guys are having an awesome day. Happy holidays coming up and all that. Coming to you live from Houston, Texas, my home. And I want to introduce to you guys the new car for the channel. This is what I replaced my Audi RS5 and my Dodge Challenger Scatpack wide body for. Some of you guys are probably saying, well, why'd you do that? Well, one, the Audi was getting up there in miles, and if you guys know me in the slightest bit, if you've been watching the channel, you know that I'm a big Porsche guy anyway. Technically, this will make my fifth Porsche, and my second 911. My first 911 was a 2006 997.1S, and I had a fully built 4.0 motor, 6-speed manual, full exhaust, full bolt-on. It was crazy. I'm talking about flames when you downshift and all that. I missed that car a lot, but made some money off of it, and everything kind of can be a commodity, man. But I've been looking for it and wanting it ever since. Now, my Audi, stay tuned about that. I actually have been in contact with the person that bought my Audi. He reached out to me. The car ended up in Dallas after I traded it in, and the guy went up to Dallas and bought it, and he's in Austin. So hopefully you watching this, man. We're gonna get together, link up, and do some content soon. I told him all the mods I did and all that. The Scat Pack, man, Scat Pack was a tough one. I really like that car, but I don't miss it. It's up there in probably the top 5 cars that I've owned, especially the smoke show one. But I miss it, but I'm not upset it's gone, man. Like the theft stuff, them trying to steal it twice. They stole the other one. It's just too much. It's just too much to be bothered with. You end up putting so much money into anti-theft this and that, and alarm system and trackers. But all that stuff is pointless. Criminals' jobs is to try to beat the system. So even if they don't get the car, what they're gonna do? Damage it trying to get it? Now you gotta deal with insurance and all that kind of stuff. So, for all you Mopar fans out there, they're great cars. I do miss mine from time to time, but I don't miss the headaches that come with owning a Mopar. I just don't. A lot of folks out there, they talk about the gas mileage, and I don't care about that. No matter the cost of gas, we still gonna drive. And I'm not full on EV. I don't dislike them, but I'm not a big EV fan right now, But enough rambling. Let me introduce you to, I don't know what I'm gonna name it, the Speddoc 911. Let's call it that. What should I name it below? Y'all probably gonna, if y'all hating, y'all probably gonna call it all types of nasty stuff in the comments. That's all right. I get with you in the comments. But most of our folks out there that watch, follow, they're big supporters of the channel, big supporters of the campaign. This here is a 2017 911 Carrera. This is in the Porsche speak, this is a 991.2, okay? The .2s ran from 2017 on up to 2020, 1920, and then that's when the new 992 dropped. Now, I like the brand new 911s, but I can't afford it, straight up. This car here already set me back like a big dog. Okay, honestly, this is the most expensive car that I've ever purchased, and that's because Porsches, especially 911s, they hold their value. COVID kind of had the prices elevated, so I kind of got this car at an even elevated price than that, but there's a specific reason why I got this car here, and that's what I'm going to talk about in this video. Why did I choose the 911 versus everything else? Hopefully I'll address how I feel about it compared to the Audi and the Dodge that I had, and how I feel about this versus other cars I looked at. Because I looked at a bunch of other cars, but I still came back home to Porsche. So let's talk about the spec. This is a GT Silver, which is about a $3,000 option on these cars, if I'm not mistaken. Color spec, 991.2 base, okay? The base car is different from the S models in that the front brakes are a little bit smaller. That's how you can tell. The S and GTS models, 4Ss and whatnot, they have red painted brake calipers. if any Porsche has yellow painted brake calipers, those are the carbon ceramic options. So if you all see one of these cars and the brake calipers are not red or yellow, chances are it's a base, right? The other thing about it is, with it being a base Carrera, it's not a Carrera 4, which means this is a rear-wheel drive car, okay? A rear-wheel drive 911. All the power goes to the back. The motor is kind of in the back, okay? Now, you say, well, Dre, you must didn't go with an S or a 4S or a GTS because you couldn't afford it. Well, I don't know about that because, like I said, the sticker on this car was pretty up there even for it being used. And this car, when I bought it, had 25,000 miles on it. So 25,000 miles, it's barely broken in, to be honest, you know, and it's got PPF in the front. The only thing that it doesn't have that I miss was the glass sunroof. It has just the regular sunroof. Now you say, well, why did you do this? Could you not afford the S or the GTS or the 4S? I don't know. A GTS 4S and all that would have been easily $10,000, $15,000, $20,000 more. But when you're financing a car, that doesn't equate to much. I suppose I could have splurged to get one of those, but that's not the real reason why I went for the base car specifically. I went for the base car specifically because all 911s now, except for the GT3s, are turbocharged. So this car has a 3.0 liter flat six motor with twin turbos, okay? From the factory, Porsche says it's 370 horsepower. Doesn't seem like much, right? Well, number one, Porsche lies. 0 to 60 time, Porsche said on this car with the PDK transmission was 4.2 seconds. That's a lie. Magazines have strapped the instruments to this car and have gotten to 60 in 3.4 seconds. And the dynos have shown that this car doesn't make 370 horsepower, really makes about 400 to 410 horsepower. Now the S and the 4S on paper, they say those cars make 420 horsepower, and they say that those cars can get to 60 in 3.8 seconds. No, magazines tested those cars 3.2 seconds, 3.3 seconds. And then the GTS, they say it's a 450 horsepower car. That car is a 500 horsepower car all day long. Magazines have gotten those cars to 60 in less than 3 seconds. So Porsche's always conservative with their numbers, with their power numbers and their acceleration numbers. And that's across the board. So then you say, well, what's the difference between the cars? Most people automatically assume that the turbochargers were what was different in these cars. That's not exactly the case. So the 3.0 liter block on the base model, the S's, 4S's, and the GTS are all the same. The turbocharger in the GTS is different. That's a different turbocharger setup altogether. It's twin turbo like all of them, but it's a different turbocharger that they're using. The base car and the S cars have the same turbocharger. However, the turbine wheel is smaller in the base car, but the compressor housing is the same size in both. So smaller turbine wheel in the base, larger turbine wheel in the S when you compare them to the base. So what does that mean? I know I'm really nerding out on most of you guys right now. What that means, if you're a car guy, if you have a smaller turbine wheel, it means less boost pressure, so lower power, you know, however it's artificially limited or whatever, lower boost pressure, and quicker spool time, which means less turbo lag. So if you follow and if you know me, you know where I'm going with this. I started looking and investigating the mod potential of these turbocharged 911s, and I started seeing that everybody that offers tunes for them, the power gains were less in the S and the 4S, to the point where a tuned S and a tuned base were coming very close to being the same power, which means you were gaining more horsepower on the base motor versus the S and the 4S car. Then I started saying, well, why? Come to find out, it's the turbine size. With a smaller diameter turbine, the spool is quicker, it spools faster, so it yields more boost. So for me, now I'm getting more power, and I've got almost zero lag. Any turbocharged car is going to have a lag. That's across the board. Manufacturers, they try to reduce the amount of lag as possible. Smaller turbine wheel, it doesn't take as long for that wheel to spin up and spool up. So I specifically knew that this car I planned on tuning. So that's the reason why I went with the base motor and I sought it out, because I knew I'd have a more enjoyable experience by having a tuned car with less lag. I've driven the base 911s before. I've driven the S and the GTS on the track and all that. And in its stock form before tune, yeah, you can tell it's a little bit slower, but it feels lighter on its feet because of that lack of the turbo lag. And it doesn't weigh as much. You know, now we're talking, 100 pounds, 150 pounds, when in a sports car that actually does equate to driver feel. So let's walk around this car, see what other options it came with. It had the PDLS lighting system. One of the videos that you'll see later, I ended up changing out the orange turn signals to the European clear corners. This car had the RS Spider wheels on there. And these wheels, because I looked up I actually have the window sticker from 2017. These wheels were also about a $3,500 option. So it's a heavily spec'd base car. Now, if we walk on around to the back, whoever spec'd the car went ahead and debadged it and just put 911 on the back, which is something that I would have done as well. Now, if you know me, I would have put 911 on the back of my 911 whether I had a Turbo S or the base car. So I'm not going to really say it's like faux badging. This car has sport exhaust on it. On these cars, you can tell the sport exhaust option because you'll have the two pipes in the center, right, on the 991s. Normally, this car would have had one exhaust on the left, one exhaust on the right. And if it was a S or a 4S, it'd have quad pipes, two on the left, two on the right. But all of them with the sport exhaust have the two center exit exhausts. Now, the 991.2 ended up, one of the ways that you can tell these cars apart from the earlier 991 models, the vents to extract the heat at the bottom, all the vents on this car are functional, and the 3D style tail lights. The earlier 991 models from like 2012, this was kind of flush and it looked great, honestly, until the 3D look came out, Of course, you've got your speed actuated spoiler here. One thing about this car, as the 911 has grown up, this car is bigger than what my 997 was. My 997 was probably about the size of a current Cayman, which is a good sized car. But this car having grown up in size, what's happened is I used to be able to work on my 911 engine myself by opening up the trunk. This here, if I open up this panel here, on this car, if I open this panel up, all that's there are the nozzles for me to put oil and water in it. That's it, okay? So I can't access the motor on this car. They moved the motor closer to the midline of the car, which is great for handling dynamics as the car has gotten bigger in size, but I hate that I can't tinker myself. Now, some people will tell you that's probably a good thing, Of course, Porsche Club of America, I've been a member because honestly, I've always had a Porsche, since 2000 and maybe 13, 14. That's how long I've been into Porsches personally. Then, of course, you put your gas here in the front. Porsche colored crest on the wheels. But overall, the driving experience of this car is far superior to that than almost any car I've ever owned. If we start talking about this car in comparison to, let's take the Scatpack, two different cars, right? The Scatpack, that one was a little bit underrated too. They said that was 500. They said it was 485 horsepower. Mine was pegging at about 502 to 510 horsepower, which is cool, right? For that size car. But the Scatpack weighs 2 tons. You see what I'm saying? The Scatpack is about a, 4,400 pound car. That's easily 1,000 pounds more than what this car weighs. So, you can't always look at the power numbers. A car, that's why the Hellcat needs 700 horsepower to achieve its 0 to 60 times in the low threes, in 3.5 seconds. And Hellcats and Scatpacks are undertired. All that power that goes to the rear wheels, it overpowers the rubber. Even the wide bodies, it's really not enough rubber to effectively put that power down. A Hellcat and a Scatpack with like slicks on them and all that would be really formidable in a straight line. But then you really couldn't drive them well on the street because slicks aren't for the street, you know. The handling dynamics of a muscle car aren't the same. The closest I'd say to that, I think the Mustang platform is pretty good in terms of handling. You're talking, you know, the GT350s, GT350Rs are fantastic cars. GT500, fantastic cars. If you're looking for a muscle car that handles, those are the closest to that. You're not going to have any of the Mopars being able to do those. They're not going to be able to dance like that. So the power delivery is different. This feels more surgically precise. The handling is more precise. And if I compare this to the Audi was all-wheel drive, but the thing is, you have to remember that Audi RS5, along with BMW M3s and M4s, Mercedes C63s, those cars are heavily massaged, cheaper cars. RS5 started life as an A5. M3 and 4 started life as a 3 and a 4 series. C63 starts life as a C-Class. So then they throw all this stuff on there. They aren't homegrown, purpose-built sports cars. They're very good cars, but if you drive like I do at 7, 8, 9 tenths and 10 tenths sometime, you see where the differences start to come. The differences are exaggerated. So the Audi outperformed the Dodge easily, handling. But it still feels like a boat compared to this 911, right? So if you want a hard-edged sports car and you need something that really, really handles, the RS5 is a decent compromise, but it's nowhere near the capabilities of this car, nowhere near it. Now, if I think about the cars that I've owned, what rivals this? My last 911, like I said, I had modded it, to be honest. It was a bridge too far. You know, the straight pipe exhaust and all that kind of stuff, that starts to wear on you, you know, and then once you have a car that's tuned like that, the air-fuel ratios here in Houston, it could be 90 degrees one day and 40 the next if you're in December. So anytime the weather would change with a big oscillation, it would trigger my check engine light. Now I'm in the car with my laptop trying to reset this, and it just was becoming all-consuming. It was too much of a hobby. Now, as I progress further in my career is taking more time, so I don't have time to tinker like I used to. So I need stuff that's more plug and play. So now I'm relegating most of my stuff to mild exhaust mods, tunes, stuff like that. Not full on rebuilding a motor and all this other kind of stuff, right? The only other car I'll say that I've ever owned that was more hard-edged than that 911 and potentially this one was the 93 Mazda RX-7 Twin Turbo. I'm gonna have to do a video on that, on my memories in that car. That car was the most raw, hard-edged sports car, and honestly the most beautiful car that I ever think was built that came out of Japan, right? But that's another video for another day. So, introducing you guys to wrap it all up. I know you all are tired of hearing me rambling. We got plenty of B-roll footage to show you the inside, the outside. To wrap it up, went with this 911 for tuning ability, went with it for its style, and I actually, besides me not being able to afford the 992 right now, I actually prefer the design of the 991.2 over the .1 and the 992 right now. I just do. Now my next 911, I plan on keeping this indefinitely, but when I do get another 911, inevitably it'll probably be a 992. And I think going up from this one, I'm either gonna go Targa, Turbo, or GT3, but I gotta sell some more teeth before I do any of that, you know, and I gotta get to work because, like I said, this set a mofo back like a big dog. And then, by the way, y'all, I tuned it already.